Have governments been secretly mapping the ocean floor for more than just science? Beneath the waves, there's a massive amount of resources like oil, gas, and rare minerals. Resources that could completely shift global power. The ocean is also key for military strategy and could hold new energy sources. Why all the secrecy though? The real reason might surprise you. These are the real reasons governments are mapping the ocean floor in secret. Governments have been mapping the ocean floor for a long time, but not just for scientific reasons. The ocean floor is where some of the world's most coveted resources are hiding: oil, gas, precious metals, and rare minerals. And we're talking about huge areas that could provide trillions of dollars in resources if they're tapped into. The thing is, most of these resources are in international waters, which means multiple countries have a stake in them. The United Nations Law of the Sea, or LOS, gives nations the right to claim EEZs, exclusive economic zones, extending up to 200 miles from their coasts, but they have to prove that the ocean floor in those areas is part of their continental shelf. Mapping the ocean floor helps figure out where these resources are, and if a country can prove its ownership, it can control access to them, and that means economic power, especially for countries with limited land based on resources. But where does the secrecy come into play here? Well, by mapping areas without public knowledge, a government could maybe quietly lay claim to valuable territory before anyone else gets a chance to stake a claim. Staying ahead of the game can give world leaders a huge advantage, and sometimes the less people know, the better. The ocean floor is also a huge asset when it comes to military power. Submarines and other underwater weapons use underwater terrain for cover and stealth. The more you know about the ocean floor, the better you can hide, ambush, or track your enemy. So countries with the resources and technology to map the seafloor are also able to control underwater areas where submarines usually are. For example, the US and Russia both have huge fleets of nuclear-powered subs that could be hiding in deep, dark parts of the ocean floor. Mapping the ocean floor is, of course, pretty essential for planning military operations, from laying underwater cables for secure communications to setting up underwater bases for research and defense. Secretive mapping is also directly related to detecting enemy vessels or planning stealth operations. When the ocean floor is mapped, you can set up a surveillance network in the deep, allowing you to watch or track things. So it makes total sense that a lot of the most detailed mapping happens behind closed doors. It's easy to imagine governments around the world wanting to mine the ocean for resources, but there's a less obvious reason governments are mapping it: climate change. The ocean plays a huge role in regulating the Earth's climate, and what's going on beneath the surface can impact everything from rising sea levels to the absorption of carbon dioxide. The seafloor stores massive amounts of carbon, and what goes on there could either help or worsen the effects of global warming. But why would any of these findings be downplayed? Well, almost everything comes down to money, and most world leaders just aren't very interested in taking drastic action. But it could also be the case they don't want to trigger widespread panic. Imagine finding out that a massive underwater chain of glaciers is set to collapse drastically, raising sea levels within the next few decades. If the public knew about this, it could throw off economies, especially in coastal areas. So keeping these findings under wraps might be a way to avoid panic or prevent overreaction that could hurt the economy. The search for new sources of energy is one of the driving forces behind mapping the ocean floor. As our old energy sources like oil and gas on land start to disappear, the focus is shifting to the ocean, which contains large amounts of energy. Potentially. Underwater methane hydrates, for example, could be the next big source of fuel. These hydrates are solid compounds of methane and water that form under high pressure on the ocean floor, and scientists think it could be essential in terms of clean energy. But nobody really knows where all the biggest methane hydrate deposits are, so that's why governments are trying to map out more and more of the ocean floor. Well, part of the reason Anyway, again though, these underwater deposits often sit in international waters or near the borders of other countries, so getting access to them is a game of legal and political chess. Some governments are trying to keep their mapping operations under wraps because there's always the risk that once this new energy source is discovered, it could trigger this huge rush and potentially even a fight for it. The ocean floor is kind of like the Wild West in a lot of ways. It's vast, unexplored, full of potential riches. Right now, there are still large chunks of the ocean that haven't been fully explored or claimed by any countries. So governments may be secretly mapping these areas to assess whether it's worth laying claim to them. According to the law of the sea, nations again can claim the continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles if they can prove the seafloor is an extension of their landmass. But a lot of these underwater territories have never been mapped or properly investigated, so it's hard to make that claim. By mapping the ocean floor in secret, governments can gain a huge advantage when it comes time to lay this claim. Whether it's a newly discovered underwater mountain range or a hidden trench full of natural resources. And there's a major scientific reason for governments to study the ocean floor. It's a gold mine of data that could help us better understand the planet. The ocean is full of unique ecosystems and unexplored areas that could hold important information about everything from new species to our tectonic plates. Governments and researchers may keep their ocean floor mapping more private because they want to get a head start on making big discoveries that could lead to breakthroughs in medicine, energy, or environmental solutions. For example, the deep ocean might hold the key to solving major problems like pollution, climate change, or even curing diseases. If they find something that could change the game, like a natural process that could help fix some of the damage done by climate change, they won't want other countries to swoop in and take credit or claim the resources before they've fully studied and figured out how to use them. Building cities under the ocean might seem kind of far-fetched, but it's actually becoming a real possibility thanks to new technology. I mean, we're talking about building stuff on Mars. I mean, the sea, that's right here at home. As sea levels rise and land near the coast becomes more vulnerable to flooding, governments could be looking for places to build future cities on the ocean floor. It makes sense if we're all going to be engulfed in it anyway. The ocean has a huge amount of space that could be used to create tons of new areas to live. Underwater locations also naturally protect against extreme weather, which could be helpful as climate change increases storms and rising seas. Right now, some underwater research stations already exist in certain parts of the ocean where the conditions are well known and stable. Governments might be doing similar research to find the best spots for these underwater cities, and if that's true, they might be keeping it quiet so no one gets a jump on the idea or starts fighting over the best places to build. Well, I'm surprised we've got this far in the video without talking about this. Our bread and butter on this channel, hidden technology, either from aliens or long-lost advanced civilizations. Sure, it's not something you'll usually hear from the mainstream science world, but some people believe the ocean floor could be hiding more than just oil and gas, that there could be the remnants of alien technology or artifacts from ancient civilizations that have been lost to time. The ocean, especially its deepest parts, is full of unexplored areas, and it's possible that parts of our human history or even technology far beyond what we can make today are hidden down there. Some stuff under the sea, like the Yonaguni Monument, which we've talked about before on here, still haven't been fully explained, and some people think that governments are mapping the ocean floor because there could be more down there. Alien objects, ancient pyramids, lost advanced technology. If governments were to find something like that, it could change everything we know about the world, or when it comes to aliens, even the universe. It makes sense that they might keep it a bit more secret, because revealing it could cause a huge public reaction and possibly lead to panic or a race to control whatever was discovered. So we've established that the ocean is a huge, unpredictable place, and there's still so much we don't know about it. Governments might not want to share how dangerous things could be down there. There are plenty of natural disasters like underwater earthquakes and volcanoes that could cause serious damage to coastal areas, even changes in the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide or regulate temperatures could make global warming worse. So if governments mapping the ocean floor find signs of disaster about to happen, like a massive underwater landslide that could trigger a tsunami, they might not want to share that information with the public right away. Revealing that kind of threat could cause a lot of panic, with people rushing to evacuate and causing economic chaos. Keeping the information secret for now could be a way to avoid causing fear or panic until there's a plan to handle whatever's happening. Now, the ocean isn't just a wild, unexplored place, it's also home to billions of dollars worth of critical infrastructure that's already there, like underwater internet cables, oil pipelines, energy grids. These systems are super important for a lot of countries' economies and their national security, and they need to be protected from threats like natural disasters or other people, i.e. enemy attacks. So governments map the ocean floor to figure out where underwater systems like oil pipelines or internet cables are most at risk, and then they take steps to protect them. This is especially important in places where military and critical infrastructure are in the same spots. Keeping the locations of these pipelines and cables a secret helps keep enemies from targeting them, which is really important for national security. With all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.